In this video, I'm going to talk about recursion in Python. Recursion is the ability of a function to call itself. So you know how to define a function. So now we're going to look at how can a function call itself. But first, let's go over an example of recursion. In mathematics, you have something called factorial. And factorial is defined as n, and the exclamation point is n, it's in factorial. Factorial is equal to n times n minus 1 times n minus 2, and so forth until you arrive at 1. So you keep multiplying and you keep subtracting until your n is equal to 1. Now let's look at an example. 5 factorial is going to be equal to 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That is the definition of 5 factorial. Now recursively, 5 factorial can also be thought of as 5 factorial is equal to 5 times 4 factorial. Because remember, it's going to be n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 until you get to 1. So if you take the 5 out, what's left is 4 factorial. So another way to look at this is that 5 factorial is going to be equal to 5 times 4 times 3 factorial. So let's put this in a program notation. So we can define something called fact with an argument of number. And we can say if number is less than or equal to 1, we are going to return 1. Else we are going to return number times fact number minus 1. So the recursion comes when we call when you call this function and the function is calling itself right here. But notice that when it calls itself, we send it n minus 1. So eventually it'll reach 1, and then at that point it will return 1, and then it will return 1, then multiplied by 2, which is 2, then multiplied by 3, then multiply 2 times 3, which is 6. Then you multiply 6 times 4, which is 24. And then when you multiply 24 times 5, it's going to return 120. So recursion is similar to looping, where you have to have a stopping point, and the stopping point is going to be what we call the base case. So in this case, when you get to 1, that is your base case, because we know that the factorial of 1 is 1. So you can try this by saying print fact 5, and if you ran this in Python, you would get 120. So this is just a simple example of how you can implement recursion, which is the ability of a function to call itself, using Python.